I get this question all the time. Doc, I lowered my carbs. When will my insulin resistance be reversed? Is it even possible? Yes, not only is it possible, but I'm going to give you the one thing where you know it's finally reversed. First, let's look at the surface level of signs of insulin resistance. And there are 3 simple measurements that you don't need a doctor for that I start with. Number 1 is BMI. And you all hate when I say this, but BMI is a good indicator of insulin resistance. I'm willing to bet that the flaws in the system of measuring your body weight by height probably don't apply to you. Unless you are a Neanderthal hunting mountain lions, the excuse of dense bones or solid muscles just doesn't apply to you. At its core, insulin resistance is driven by an excess of fat tissue. BMI is the simplest, fastest way to screen for that excess fat. It's not the final answer, but it is a valid first clue. In a BMI chart, you're gonna wanna be in the green zone. What is it about being overweight that poses the most danger here? Well, it's visceral fat. It looks like an extra spare tire around your middle, internal fat packed around your organs. What's the best way to measure it? Well, that's number 2, your height to waist ratio. Take a tape measure and measure your waist circumference around your belly button. Then divide that number by your height, making sure that both are in the same units, either inches or centimeters. If that number is 0.5 or greater, it indicates an increased risk. Why? Well, visceral fats tell me your organs are not listening to the proper signals. Your muscles and liver are becoming metabolically sloppy. When you eat, they don't respond properly to insulin. So your pancreas is forced to scream louder and louder by releasing more and more insulin to do the same job. This vicious cycle is the very definition of insulin resistance. The third thing I look at is your hemoglobin A1C, and you don't need to see me to have this ordered. This test measures the average amount of sugar that's stuck to your red blood cells over the past 3 months. Think of it as your body's check engine light relative to your blood sugar. For a long time, your pancreas can compensate for insulin resistance by pumping out extra insulin to keep your blood sugar under control, but it can't keep up forever. Losing the fight and getting insulin resistance starts with a bunch of insulin failing to keep your blood sugar under control. As your average blood sugar drifts up, so does your A1C. Even a slight rise of 5.3 or 5.4 means your body is well on its way to losing that fight between insulin and blood sugars. Now, in the early part of insulin resistance, a ketogenic diet can reverse that elevated blood sugar fairly quickly. Their sugars stabilize into the 90s in the morning. But does that mean you're cured? Not yet. Dropping those blood sugars into the 90s each morning is treating a symptom, a really important symptom. But that root cause, that excess insulin, is still there. Insulin is a hormone that stores sugar, but it also is a growth hormone. It's inflammatory. It grows things that we don't want it to grow, like fat cells and chronic disease. And the organ that gets hit the hardest is your liver. Here is a beautiful, healthy liver. Now we add years of high insulin. Think of your liver as a parking garage for energy. And when you eat a meal, that excess sugar or glucose needs parked in a place that you can easily retrieve it. The easiest parking spot is the liver, and this keeps your blood sugars stable in between meals. But as we constantly overload the system and fill all the individual parking spots, your liver gets clever. It links glucose into a tighter packaging called glycogen. This stores more glucose in a smaller space, yet is still quickly reversible. Glucose went in, and glucose can easily come out. That persistently elevated insulin pushes the equation towards storage. And unfortunately, most are further along in this disease process than they know. And when the glycogen storage is full, that's when the real problem begins. Your sugar-stuffed liver, well, it has no choice but to start a new, much more permanent process. It takes those strings of sugar and through a process called de novo lipogenesis, spins them into fat, triglycerides. And this is a critical turning point. This fat is not going to exit the liver unless you start burning energy in the form of fat. Said another way, you need to make ketones to reverse the problem. Anyone who tells you differently is wrong. This fatty liver process is happening silently, long before you see it on a standard lab report. ALT above 25 is not normal. This is my first clinical clue. When that liver enzyme is elevated, it means it's working overtime, processing all that stored energy. So when do you know your insulin resistance is truly reversed? The answer is simple. You know your insulin resistance is reversed when you have reversed your fatty liver. The best way to estimate what your insulin is doing and if you're effectively burning that liver fat is to measure your morning glucose and your morning ketones at the same time. To learn exactly how to do that, click on the next video and learn about the Dr. Boz ratio. I'll see you there.